Hey everybody, it is time once again for another Rahdo Q&A. And hello everybody, I'm about to answer a bunch of questions submitted by folks like you to the email address questions@rahdo.com. And by all means folks, if anything I talk about or my wife talks about, because she sometimes shows up on these as well, prompts any further questions from you, well, you know what to do. Questions@rahdo.com is the email address. Keep them coming, folks. I want to hear your cues so I can am. And speaking of which, let's get right to it. But, folks, I'm going to talk about several different topics today, and if any of them don't really strike your fancy, don't worry. There are links down in the show notes that let you jump around from question to question so you can listen to just the parts you're interested in. All right, sound good? Then let's go. Now that you like solo gaming, we've moved on to a new question from Gerald. If you received a copy of Star Trek Frontiers, the Mage Knight in Space game, would you keep it? Would it make it into your top 10 best solo games? Is it Star Trek enough? That is interesting. Now, first of all, I have to correct the record. I do not like solo gaming. Or at least, no, it's not. Solo gaming is definitely fun. There's no two ways about it. It is definitely an enjoyable experience. It is a worthy and worthwhile experience. It is not something I seek out. I do not play solo games for fun. I do have fun playing solo games for the purposes of covering them on the channel, but I play board games to experience them with my wife. That is the main reason I have passion and enthusiasm for this hobby. If my wife had never been interested in playing board games with me, although I always knew she would be because, hey, remember we used to play Magic the Gathering back in the day, and she loves them as much as me, or not as much as me, but almost as much as me. She loves them more than the average Joe or Jane. If she had never been interested, I doubt Rahdo would have ever started. Because we would have played a few games. She was, oh, that's nice, but let's just go for a walk instead. I'm like, okay, well, I guess board games are not going to be a thing that's part of our lives. And I'd go back to trying to find more cooperative video games that we could play together. We used to play a lot of video games together. Whenever I could ever find a cooperative video game that did not feature a first-person 3D camera that would make her ill because of, inner ear balances and all of that. I mean, we played a lot of EverQuest in the day, and she, even though it would make her feel nauseous, she loved it so much, and we enjoyed that together. We've always enjoyed gaming together, and we've always looked for cooperative experiences, and no surprise, it turns out board games are, maybe our favorite thing that we actually share as a pastime, and that's what I love. Solo gaming doesn't give me that. Solo gaming gives me a very fun puzzle to solve, but, if I, in my spare time, it's not what I'm going to do. So I have to now hypothesize. So the answer to your question is, I don't know. I have certainly done top 10 solo games, though, where I am doing it less as a personal reflection of my passion and more as an exploration of my intellectual appreciation for the experience they give me. And would Star Trek Frontiers? Star Trek Frontiers very much could. I'm sure when Star Trek Frontiers came out, it probably had a solo mode, right? And I'm sure I did not demonstrate it that way. I have learned that filming run-throughs, as a general rule, not always, but as a general rule, is so much more enjoyable for me as an activity when I'm filming them solo. Because I'm actually getting into it. When I'm playing as two characters, I am articulating all the fun that you get from trying to guess what your opponent's going to do and stay one step ahead and, whatever it might be, all that interaction. I'm trying to articulate it, but I'm not truly feeling it because I'm not another player. I do not have multiple personalities. I'm just keeping two people in my head at once, trying to look for opportunities to demonstrate the experiences that I've genuinely had playing with my wife. Whereas when I'm actually filming a solo run through, no, I'm just enjoying it as a game. Pure and simple. It's a fun puzzle where I'm trying to beat a set of rules to come out on top. And it's just more fun. So that's one of the reasons you see me doing it more. But that does not translate to me becoming a solo gamer IRL. Because I don't think I'm enough of a board game fan to do it. The closest I've come to that is, for a while, every time a new Marvel Champions expansion would come out, I would very gleefully rip it open and that day play it a few times to see everything it offered because of my deep, deep love for Marvel. Not Marvel Champions specifically, but the Marvel superheroes, because it's just one of my childhood nostalgic things. Make mine Marvel. I've always been that way. And so that was probably when I was back in Marvel Champions Hardcore. That was the closest I became. And there, I will admit, there have been times when I'm sitting on the couch reading news stories that I've almost gotten the itch to get up and play some Marvel Champions solo. Nothing else. No other solo game has ever triggered that in me. And I don't imagine Star Trek Frontiers could do it, because of course one of the beautiful things about Marvel Champions is you can have it set up and put in less than 2 minutes, and you can have it put away in less than a minute. And so it just really invites itself. I should say that's it, because I don't bother with any deck building. I just use I've talked about in the past, the really great resource on Boardgame Geek, where you can just have a bunch of preset heroes. And so really my randomizer is what villain would I show up and what accents would they have, and I just have fun playing it because I haven't played Captain America since the game came out. I just want to try that again. I've never fought an outer space adversary. I've never fought the Starjammers with Captain America. Just even talking about it makes me kind of want to do it. But not again because I love the game so much. I mean, the game is great, but because I love Marvel so much, and that just tickles my fancy. So, here's the deal. To follow on, Star Trek Frontiers probably could never scratch that itch for me because it's such a big old beast of a game, and it's gonna, a game of Marvel Champions is gonna take me a half an hour. A game of Star Trek Frontiers, even played solo, is gonna take me 90 minutes, right? Maybe if you get fast, it'll be quicker. I don't know. So, it won't work. I've mentioned this in the past. Will the upcoming Star Trek game from publisher WizKids and designer Dave Turczi and Nigel Bucknell, the co-designers of the Imperium deck building card series that I have said on more than one occasion is probably one of the top 5 greatest card game systems ever, and is now going to be, they're going to be doing a version of Imperium but set in Star Trek lore. When that comes out, that might be Star Trek enough to turn me into a solo gamer, or at least get as close to it as Marvel Champions does. Time will tell. Again, this game has not been publicly announced. I do know the title of the game. I cannot tell you. I have actually played a couple of rounds with Dave Turczi online, and it's my most anticipated game in history. I can't wait for it. So anyway, continuing on to Gerald's third question. I find that most, if not all, games with unique faction abilities push you towards a way of playing. And if you don't go down that suggested path, then you're at a disadvantage to the other players that do it with their factions, as they will get bonuses, discounts, etc. Does that not bug you that you must follow the play style for this game? And do you know of a game that does this but doesn't push you down a play style path? I agree it does happen. I don't agree that it happens as strongly as you are suggesting it does. It would have been great if you could have mentioned specific games, right? I think I've mentioned this in the past, that a unique player ability will give you a nudge in a certain direction, but it won't force you down a path necessarily. What it means is that if I am playing, literally the first thing that pops into my head is Agricola, because Agricola, I get some starting cards that might as well be a faction. This combination of cards represents my faction as a player, and which of these powers am I going to leverage? But, come on. Because generally I really love having these. Daybreak. Daybreak gives you unique player powers. Every player starts with 5 specific cards, and while a lot of them do the same kind of things, the different nations do have certain things they're better at. And so, like if you're playing the majority world, you're the one who starts with the ability to actually flip up cards, right? And see cards coming ahead of time, disaster cards, because you've got, I forget what it's called, early warning system or something like that. That's something they have that Europe doesn't have, that China doesn't have. And so if you're playing with them, you are going to leverage that power. But does that mean my entire game when I'm playing Majority World and Daybreak becomes about that? No. It doesn't become my entire strategy is this. It just becomes a little nudge because I do want to leverage that power. I'd be foolish not to because it's a really great power and it's really unique to that. But does that mean every time I play Daybreak as the Majority World faction that the game, I'm just going to literally make the exact same choices, do the exact same thing? No. Does it mean that I'm going to have a slightly more focused in one particular direction experience? Yes. But there's still going to be such a wide raft of things that will happen that I might find, oh, you know what, in this game, I am so ahead of the curve, I don't even need to do that. I can ignore my advance warning because I've got so much resilience, it doesn't matter what disasters are coming, I'm going to be fine because of some other combination of cards. So it's an example of what I call a nudge. It nudges me in a direction. Maybe it will define some of my experience of the game. Chances are only early in the game, and maybe not at all, and maybe sometimes more. It's very rare that I find these kind of unique player starting powers, faction abilities, whatever, asymmetrical setups are so ubiquitous and so powerful that they force me, that they mandate me to play along a specific pre-scripted path, and I don't like that. I almost never see it happen, though. I can mention one that did. I recently covered Apostocracy, which was a sponsored game on Kickstarter. And by the way, for everybody who says Rahdo never says a bad thing about anything because he's a paid shill, go back and watch my frickin' final thoughts for Apostocracy, where I spent half of my final thoughts talking about the weaknesses of that game design, even though I was paid to do it. And my biggest complaint about that game was that in that game, you were very much railroaded. That I would never want to play with a given faction, or in that game it was your aristocratic sponsor, more than once, because it means if I ever play that one again, I'll have to play the same game, so the game really only had 4 plays, and now I feel like I've seen everything. And I did point that out in the run-through. And I'll tell you why I pointed that out, because one, it was a problem, and I never stay silent unless it's a mistake. As mentioned earlier, I did, although that's just because I had changing tastes, I guess. Anyway, though, I never stay silent when I find a problem with games. It's just normally, if I find a problem with a game, I don't cover it. It's my last podcast. This is my last chance to once again refute all the haters out there who say I'm a paid shill and I never say anything critical about games when that's objectively, easily disproven. It's a laughable, ridiculous argument that people make all the frickin' time, and a week doesn't go by that I don't see it at least a half a dozen times, and it drives me nuts and clearly gets under my skin. And those people just are so, disinterested in the truth. They will never hear this, unfortunately. Anyway, though, sorry. Just getting it off my chest. Drives me nuts. But that was an example. And the nice thing is, I'm happy to say that I said it in the final thoughts. I also said it directly to the designer. And she said, yeah, you know what? I agree. And I'm working on that. And so the final version of the game is going to be better because I think she's going to leave those in, and she's going to treat them as like, hey, the first time you play, try this because it really gives you training wheels, really sets you in a certain path, and you'll have a good time playing. And then after you're done that, don't use them anymore because she's going to have some other system for something that won't be quite so hand-holdy. So, what was your actual question? Does it? Yes, it bugs me when it's egregious. When it's just a gentle nudge that incentivizes me, encourages me to focus on one thing, but it still doesn't mean I'm not going to experience a new take on the game. I'm not going to have new, exciting things. I'm not going to see new ways that particular power interacts, because a given power, sometimes, depending on how the game evolves, will be more or less useful. Will, combo with different things in different ways. So no, it doesn't bother me at all. Most of the time. It's pretty rare that I find an egregious example. And if ever I find it, I'll mention it. And hopefully the game will be better for it, as will be the case with Apostocracy, which I'm very excited to see what Heather comes up with. I think her name was Heather. I'm pretty sure the writer-artist was Heather. Anyway, next question. And now this one, I'm sorry, Gerald. You say it's for Jen and Rahdo. Here's the deal. I already recorded all the Jen questions yesterday, so it is too late. This came in a day too late for Jen to answer it. Jen is literally off getting a mammogram right now. It's funny. And when we get to the personal Q&A section, at one point you'll hear me talk about me being prepared for my colonoscopy. Let me spoil it for you now, folks, because it was a bit of a cliffhanger that I finished the personal Q&A and then had a tearful goodbye to everybody at the end of the episode. Spoiler, there will be tears at the end. I will get a little emotional, but right now I'm feeling okay. But I did mention that, we're doing a colonoscopy, later today, or maybe it was the next day. I forget now. I'm losing track of time. And anyway, Heard back, the colonoscopy was all clear. My colon is a beautiful thing. They said I did a great job doing the prep, clean as a whistle, and they found one polyp, but they were able to remove it easily. It's going to go but they're pretty confident that it looked fairly benign. I'll hear back, but they said, you're doing great. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. So that is what I'm going to keep doing, which is a low-carb, high-saturated fat diet. Yeah, baby. Because that is the key to health and longevity by adjusting your eating habits so that you fine-tune it for what we as a species evolved to eat. Sorry, once again, in the game section, I'm going into personal Q&A stuff. If people would like to know what are you talking about, what we evolved to eat, by all means, send your questions to questions@rahdo.com, and it will show up in a future ramble instead of a podcast episode. But it'll be behind a paywall. But you have to pay so little. Hopefully, and don't forget, if you're backing at the ramble level, you're not just getting that. No. I haven't even recorded my intro. I will mention this in the intro. I'm not going to repeat the sales pitch that I haven't even made yet to tell people, hey, support the show. Because also, Gerald, we're circling back. You know what will bring the podcast back? More people. Backing me on Patreon. If we get enough people to where we hit another funding level, then I'll ask, hey, would you rather this new funding level be another run through, or would you like to see the return of the podcast? So it could always come back, but it's not going away. It's just becoming a ramble. Sorry, jumping around here. Jen and Rahdo. So anyway, I will answer on Jen's behalf as best I can. How would you rank the following 4 game art on which is objectively better art, higher skill involved? Oh, that is interesting. Because, of course, there's no such thing as objectively superior art. But you did caveat by saying, what would be harder to do? I am not an artist. Jen would be much better suited to answer this question. And unfortunately, she's not here, but I'll do my best. Impossible to answer, you say? Well, then how would you guess objectively which is better? I did just say impossible. Oh, Gerald. Folks, Gerald's been with me for a long time. Gerald can read my mind. He's done it many, many times. You caught me again, Gerald. How would you guess objectively which is better? Second, how would you rate the art of them based on how much you enjoy looking at them? Okay, so the questions are Cat Pack, the brand new game with the cute, adorable cats, Gloomhaven, 7 Wonders, and Roll for the Galaxy. All right, I got to look at some pictures. Alrighty, so let's go to Board Game Geek, Cat Pack, browser. Bring it up. The Cat Pack. Oh, there it is. Or there's my video of it. No, it's Cat Packs, plural. I'll fix that in your question. Cat Packs. So, are there any pictures on Board Game Geek? There are not, other than the box art, but that'll do. I mean, that gives a pretty good idea of the box art, I think. All right, so Cat Packs art. Although, man, it does not capture the charm. How are there no pictures of Cat Packs on Board Game Geek? Has the game launched yet? Is there a Kickstarter for it? I don't remember. Let's go back to me. All the way back to me, back to my video, because it was a sponsored preview, and in the preview, there will be a link to the crowdfunding page. There we go. And it is... Oh, yeah. Okay. Is it closed? Yeah, it funded. Oh, that's great. It over 238%. It made 12,000 euros. They were looking for 5,000 euros. That is awesome. And here is a great example of the art. So I will just stick with that art. Now I gotta dig up art. I'm sure there'll be plenty of art. I'm just gonna do art of Gloomhaven. I bet you there are websites devoted to this, aren't there? No, there's fan art, discussion art in general. All right, that's not what I was looking for. But anyway, if I just go to images, there'll be plenty. Right. But just the box cover, I think will do it. Just the box cover, I think, typifies the art you see here. Yes, this is a little bit more dense, but still the individual art. Let's see, what else we got then? And that's a great cover. What was next? 7 Wonders. Board game, 7 Wonders. I want to see just a bunch of cards. I wonder if on Board Game Geek there will be one of those, hey, look, here's just like a big... collage of cards. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking for. So I can just... Nope, that's a big collage of tiny little cards. I want to see the card art. Let's see. If I go to images, isn't there a way I can just look at, for category art or something like that, box run components? Yeah, maybe components in the gallery. There we go. That's probably going to help. That's a bunch of pictures of the backs of the cards. That's not what I'm looking for here. I want a lot of pictures of a lot of the fronts of the cards. There we go. component arrangement. That'll do. There's a good picture to typify Seven Wonders art, and then we need Roll for the Galaxy. Let's see if we can pull that same thing off. Board Game Geek, Roll for Gal. All right, the art here is on the tiles. Let's see. Hey, look at that. Did somebody do it? Yeah, that'll do. Have to zoom in a bit. All right, so there we go. So, you're asking. Let's do the easy one first. Man, I wish Jen was here now, because I'm genuinely curious about this as well. All right, that's probably a better one, because it's showing individual tiles and showing a little bit more variety, because it's not doing all the double starter tiles. Although it is a bit low res, but it'll have to do. So, which one do I like the most? If I'm honest, Cat Packs. If I'm honest. I love this. As I understand, if I recall correctly, Cat Packs, the designer worked with an artist who was already an established cartoonist and had like this whole line of cat art that they do, and they have a successful thing, and they said, I love your cats, let's make a game with them. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And it has nothing to do with objective quality or skill level. It's just what makes me happiest to look at. These make me happy to look at. Look at them. They're just so infused with charm and humor and warmth and life. And it just makes me happy to see them. And then on top of that, I mean, there's no denying the fact that they are accentuated by, because it's not, when you're looking at the game, you're not just looking at the art, you're looking at the names of the cards, the text, and often they're doing fun little puns, and you're like, what is this picture? Oh, this is so sweet. This makes me so. So, Cat Packs is my personal favorite. But I'll go one step further. Oh, you said to rank them. All right, so Cat Packs comes in at the number 1. Can I say a 3-way tie? Can I? For 2s, 3s, and 4s? I mean, gosh, Seven Wonders and Roll for the Galaxy. I guess I will say Seven Wonders is my second one. Because there's more humanity to it. Right? Most everything you see in the art of Roll for the Galaxy is science fiction concept, planets, ships, cityscapes, space stations. Hey, there's some people in there, but it's never about the people, right? I mean, that's, obviously there's going to be exceptions. Let's look a little bit further. But yeah, I mean, it's more about, aliens, but usually aliens doing some sci-fi thing. So even the aliens take second place. Look, there's an alien right there, but it's really about the nanotechnology that the alien is wielding. There's a person, but it's a person doing this thing, and it's not about the human condition. I mean, there's one information tech, but even still, that information tech is cold. It's distant. It's got a veneer of sci-fi-edness to it. And that, I feel like, art. What is art? Art is about a person. What is it? The definition of art. I'm not going to look it up, but my personal definition is somebody using some medium to express ideas, emotion, thoughts, meaning, and then the audience being able to consume that work and bring, potentially appreciate the meaning that the artist put into it, but not necessarily, more importantly, being able to find their own meaning in it, right? That's art. And to me, if an art is going to engage me emotionally, that's going to make it better art. And honestly, that's why Cat Packs wins. That's why Seven Wonders comes in second. Because it is more about people and their lived experiences and from what I have come and what I am connected to and what are universal. And yes, there are, as you can see, for folks who are listening, as you can see, I will try to describe, there's a bunch of, first of all, the cards are bright and vibrant and colorful. That elicits more of an emotional response to me than the cool blues of, the entire design of, the graphic design of Roll for the Galaxy is cold. It's cold like the deepest reaches of space. It holds me at arm's length. And I honestly, until I look at this picture, I couldn't even visualize any art. And that's not to say it's not well done art. There are talented artists working on this. But it's not just the art, it's the overall presentation if you're looking at it as a piece of game art. And I get swept up by in the emotional narrative of Roll for the Galaxy is the text. The text does more to elicit an emotional response from me because of the way, this thing combines with this thing, and it tells a story. That's the thing I love about Roll for the Galaxy. By the time you've done, you have told a completely new story of the rise and maybe the fall of some galactic civilization. As they started out doing this, they pivoted to that. I love that. And while the art is there to support it, it's less the art that supports it, that tells that story, and more the words. And so it's not the failure of the artists. They're talented artists, but it's art that serves a different purpose than what I get out of it. I get that out of Cat Pack. And to a lesser extent, but I still do get that out of Seven Wonders. So now we got to put 3 and 4. And again, this is me, my own personal taste. So first of all, there's almost no freaking art in Gloomhaven. So I'm inclined to let Roll for the Galaxy win, just straight up. Because Gloomhaven, what you spend the vast majority of your time looking at is text on cards. And I got no problem with that at all. They need to, because the cards are so complex, and each card is really 2 cards and all that stuff. And so you see the text on the board, but that's just kind of, it's well done, but it's just hexes of... now, if you had said Jaws of the Lion, that would get more interesting because, of course, you don't have just generic tiles with a few other tiles put on top trying to tell a story. Jaws of the Lion has every map. You see the bloodstains from where the body was dragged away. You see the overturned chairs in the tavern. You don't have to imagine it. And so that elevates it quite a bit. So then should I value Gloomhaven at its best? Jaws of the Lion specifically. Because I can get myself lost in it. I can see all those details. Gloomhaven itself, its art, by its very design, its construction, its art is so generic as to be kind of meaningless. So, straight Gloomhaven, I will put it at the bottom of the list. And again, it's no strike against the skill of the artist. They did the best they possibly could within the confines of what it is. If we're talking Jaws of the Lion specifically, I'll put Jaws of the Lion in that 3rd spot. And so I would swap both of those. And hopefully that gives an idea of why. But now, I'm supposed to do it objectively. I'm going to say I can't because I'm not an artist. But you asked me, guess. Guess what is harder to do? Well, I would assume that producing the Gloomhaven art is much more detailed, right? What there is of it, and there's a lot less, but what there is, especially again, if you get into the Jaws of the Lion, where, there's more art in Jaws of the Lion, which only has 24 missions, than Gloomhaven and Frosthaven combined, right? Which means you've got 200 missions of stuff, but Jaws of the Lion, with its 20-some pages, has more art in it. So I'm going to guess, with no true real-world lived experience, that the Gloomhaven art is objectively better as measured by the amount of skill. My assumption is the artists involved had to devote more hours of their life mastering their craft to reach their current level. I'm not saying for a fact that is. I'm just making an ill-informed, ignorant guess. And then, number 2... See, I kind of want to come back to Cat Packs. I kind of do. Even though these are simple squiggles, but they're not. When you look at them, there is depth and warmth and toying with perspective and all kinds of interesting things in this too. And and such a unique style. I am not saying that Gloomhaven doesn't have a unique style. There aren't people out there who are a fan of this artist who wouldn't look at it and say, oh yeah, that could only be this artist. I don't know who the artist is. I'm sure it is, but to me, it feels much more generic. Cat Packs doesn't. Cat Pack feels very personal. It feels like, I would not mistake, anything else on the Sunday Funny Papers for the art of Cat Packs. So I'm inclined to give it to Cat Packs as number 2. And then, both Seven Wonders and Roll for the Galaxy, I'm just going to say they both feel so generic. I'm just going to let them tie. I'm going to let them tie. Strictly speaking, there's less detail. Just, at casual glance. But that's not saying that it doesn't take skill to be able to, with less detail, still capture an image. I imagine that takes a level of skill as well. So I'm gonna call a tie between those two. Anyway, that was our fun. And again, Gerald, send more of those and I'll keep doing them in the rambles. But let's move on to Gerald's last question, which I'm sorry is also one for Jen. And again, Jen is not here. But I recently watched a few roll and writes and Jen was in the video playing. Jen, did you enjoy playing roll and writes on camera more than other games on camera? You know what? I can answer for that. No. Or if it does, the only reason it does is because generally speaking, roll and writes are easier to play. And filming a run through live, even though I've been doing it now for over 12 years now, it is still stressful every single time I sit down to play. And the heavier and more complex the game is, the more stressful it is. Roll and writes tend to be on the lighter side, so that means they are less stressful, which means they are more pleasant to film. Now, that is not why. I mean, heck, if you want to, let's just go to jen.rahdo.com, where folks can see. I'm surprised. I didn't know that was true, but I believe you, Gerald, because again, you do your research. This is a playlist, jen.rahdo.com, of every video Jen's ever been in. She has been in 114 videos. And that's to say, if she's been in more videos, but 114 run-throughs and specific, or she spent a lot of time. She played games with me. She was in the final thoughts, whatever it might be. It was an interview she did with me, etc. So, right off the bat, I don't see roll and writes. No. No. Oh, roll and fight. But here, one thing you might have noticed, most of the roll and writes she's playing with me, there are a few reasons that Jen has been in run-throughs with me, because I need her. I cannot see, that's the only reason she'll do it, is because I can't demonstrate the game without her. Why? Because it's a real-time game, like Firefighters on Duty, or Vengeance, roll and fight. That's a real-time game. Or, now watch me be a liar. Oh, but okay, here's the thing. So there's still gonna be a lot of time is because it's a real-time game. And when I covered Project Elite, the first time Jen ever did a video with me, if we scroll all the way down to the bottom, it was Escape, Curse of the Temple. I needed her help because it was a real-time game. These days, of course, I would just do it solo. But back then, I didn't do solo run-throughs. This was us doing a run-through of her making her glass. Look how young and happy and thinner we are. And tanner, too, our time in Malta. But anyway, so, but here's the other thing. The other things to keep it for a long while, for how many ultimately? Rahdo runs through live. Number 17, number 21, number 20, number 28. There was a time when I, every month, would do a live stream with Jen. And why was I doing it? Because it was many, many years ago, back when I didn't fundraise on Patreon, but instead I fundraised on Kickstarter. We hit a goal that Jen was going to, every month I was going to do a live stream of a game with Jen. And so every month we had to do it. And that's what these, some of these older ones. This was actually a video game. Oh, there we go. If they're called RRT Live, there's mainly broadly three reasons Jen is going to be here. Because it was a real-time game, I needed her help. Or maybe because it had hidden information and it was going to be hard for me to replicate that. So it was just like Hanabi. Jen did a Hanabi run through with me as well, because how am I going to do Hanabi without somebody giving me clues, etc. Or it's a real-time game, or it's just impossible for me to do it without having somebody else, like Fuse. Or because it was a legacy game, and Jen did not want me playing the legacy game without her, because in a legacy game, the decisions were real, and she wanted her to be making those decisions instead of me. Or because it was this series of live streams we used to do together, right? And there were 28 of them. And now, there's probably a higher propensity of roll and writes amongst those live streams we did because they're easier, like I said. Although ultimately, several of them, they would have been the ones we chose. Like On Tour is a perfect example. When I was doing live streams wherever I could, I tried to do them in such a way that the audience who was watching live could join in. And if you go back, all to this day, you can watch my Rahdo Runs Through Live 16 on tour, and you can play it with us. You can go and download a version of the map and play with me and Jen. And just generally speaking, roll and writes tend to be a really good avenue for that because they tend towards bingo style gameplay where, hey, dice are rolled, cards are flipped, whatever, and then everybody just responds. So that's why I'm guessing that's probably the main reason you are seeing a higher percentage on this list of roll and writes than other stuff. So that's kind of how that came about. Hopefully that makes sense. And thank you, Gerald, for your questions over the years. Keep them coming to questions@rahdo.com for the ramble. Alrighty. Oh, now I need to look up, are you a level 2 rambler? I don't know. I'm going to check. Oh, well, now I'm embarrassed. I'm sorry, Gerald. I thought you were a sponsor of the show, but I can't find you in the Patreon rolls. Oh. Well, then never mind, Gerald. Please don't send any questions to questions@rahdo.com. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I feel bad about that. I just assumed you've been with me for so long, but it's totally fine. I'm not saying, Gerald, I need your $2. I mean, I don't know what your life situation is. You probably have a better use for those $2, and I totally understand, and that's okay. I guess just know that it will continue on. And heck, here's the deal. Don't forget, folks. It's not like you have to pay $2 and then you've entered into a contract that will last for the rest of your life. This is making me think of other things I have to mention in the intro, which I haven't filmed yet. But I'll just mention it again here now. You could just once a year, pay $2 and for one day, to basically just unlock the Rambler level. And then you have 30 days to watch a year's worth of rambles and a whole bunch of Q&A. And then you can just cancel it. So, again, like how people binge shows on Netflix. Oh, finally, Stranger Things is back. All right. Are they all up? Are they all on the channel? Right. I will now pay my, what is it now? $14 a month? $13 a month? Oh, I guess it's cheaper if you have ads because they're doing ads now. Great. I'll pay whatever I'm going to pay. I'll watch them all and then I'll cancel. I support binge watching. I don't personally do it, but my wife loves it. Anyway, I'm sorry, Gerald, if this is goodbye. It's been great. You have been a phenomenal partner in helping me make this podcast everything it's ever been. And goodbye to everybody else. I'm sorry I can't say goodbye to all the regulars. Jack, no more Jack attacks wherever you are. Everybody. It's been an amazing ride. But I'm not going to dwell on that. I will save my crying, tearful goodbyes for the end of this entire episode. Thank you. Moving on, Jonathan says, 1. Considering your background in the video game industry, I'm curious what you think about a glitch mechanism in board games. What would it be like? How would it work? I understand this is a result of machine processing errors, but perhaps board game designers could intentionally keep something off about a game just to simulate a glitch. That's interesting. Well, certainly it'd be easy enough to implement. It'd be so easy. I mean, it's a glitch is just literally throwing a glitch in a card draw that, hey, there's literally just a card called glitch and it doesn't have a fixed thing. It'll then make you roll a die and do one of several things. Because there's the glitch die. Here's all the way our code could go bad. That's totally fine. That's not something I'm interested in because I'm generally not a fan of random event-driven gameplay in board games. In much the same way, I wouldn't be a fan of random bugs that cause me to die in a video game. I think glitches are terrible. That is interesting. I've never thought about this before. Event-driven gameplay is literally like bugs in a video game because you can't predict them. They just hit you randomly, and they're crappy. Because they are crappy. But I would think that's how you do it. It's not really that hard, unless you're talking about something else. But I'm assuming, and I'm sorry, Jonathan, unless you're a backer on Patreon or a member here on YouTube, you will not be able to ask a follow-up question. Or you could ask, but you'll not hear me answer it. Oh, I just had a thought in my head. If someone like Gerald keeps sending questions, but they're only behind a paywall, would I then cut out my answer and send the person, not the whole episode, but just that portion that is the answer to their question? Wow, that would be so much frickin' work. I'll have to think about that because I have not recorded my intro yet, so I don't have to make that promise yet. Again, folks, you're seeing everything in backwards order, me filming in reverse order. It's very, not Inception. What was the first Jonathan Nolan film? I can't think of it now. I can't think of it. With Guy Pearce. Why can't I think of everything about that movie? And every actor's name, Carrie-Anne Moss was in there. Whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, though, of course, I also feel a glitch would make for a great and refreshing theme for board game. In addition, I feel it'd be cool to have a creation of a new mechanism off of it. What are your thoughts about glitches in board games? My thoughts are you really need to describe what you mean by a video game glitch. Is this something I'm unaware of because I'm so far removed? Are glitches a known genre of game in video games? Video game glitch mechanism. Glitches stem from multitude of factors: coding errors, improper memory management, hardware limitations, unintended interaction between game systems. Yeah, they're bugs. Yeah. Oh, I bet you. I'm just trying to guess, Jonathan. What do you mean by a glitch? Because, I mean, to me, I'm a video game developer. I have a very clear definition of it. It's just a bug. It's when something goes wrong in the code. But maybe you mean those really weird, far-out things, like the bug is something absurd, like you're riding a horse in Red Dead Redemption, and just for some reason it just starts floating off into the sky, upside down, with its head twisted around. Just really weird. Like the things that go viral is, oh, look at how glitchy this game is. Weird stuff. That's probably what you mean. You mean introducing weird, unexpected phenomena. Well, still, yeah. I don't think anything changes. You can still do that. I still don't think I'd like it because while it makes for funny TikTok videos, I don't think it's particularly good if I'm actually serious about playing a game. And Jen and I, we're generally pretty serious when we're playing our games. We're not looking for a game to say, haha, look how funny I could be while I ruin your chance to win. Alrighty. 2. And my apologies, Jonathan, if I didn't quite get it. 2. Corollary to the above question. Could you discuss the parallels between board game design and video game design? How are they similar and how do they differ? Well, I have never designed a board game, or at least not properly. I have been involved in the design of board games. I have contributed to the design of board games, but I have not been a designer. I have not sat down with a blank piece of paper and said, right, this is how it's going to work. But whereas I've done that for 20 years as a video game designer. So I could only guess. But also, just on a pure logistics, they have to be so different. Because at least the type of video gaming designing I did, where all I could be responsible for was coming up with the ideas and then working with others because I needed programmers and artists to make my ideas come to life. Sure, there are plenty of video game designers who are also coders. There are plenty of small little, Minecraft was done by one guy, right? So designing Minecraft for him is maybe like designing a board game because he does everything. He is responsible for everything in there. And it's the same way that Ryan Lockett is responsible for everything in one of his games because he's a designer artist. But I suspect my interaction with an artist on a video game is very different than your typical designer's interaction with an artist on a board game. Because I think, generally speaking, and again, I can't say this for sure, it's probably more the case in board game development that the art serves the design. Whereas in video game development, that can be the case, but if that's the case, you're failing. Because the art and the design become their own intermeshed greater than the sum of its parts. And that's not fair. That's true for board games too. I am sure there are many, many examples of board game designers who thought a thing was going to go one way, but then they see the art and they say, oh my gosh, I have to change the design because this art just made me completely reevaluate what I think of my game. So in that regard, I'm sure there are all kinds of overlaps that don't instinctually come to me because I've got a very myopic view. But, but for me, my experience where I did not do any of the coding myself. So half of my job, really only a small portion of my job, was actually doing the design work, right? The majority of my job was being a cheerleader, making sure other people that, this team, anywhere from a dozen to 200 people, depending on what game we're talking about, are all working in the same direction, all trying to achieve the same goal, which is self-aggrandizing as it stands, my vision, and me, communicating my vision well so it will come across on the screen, but also adapting and amending my vision by, absorbing the visions of my collaborators. And I'm sure, again, that happens in board games as well, but probably to a much smaller degree. A designer in a board game is the designer and the programmer, and heck, sometimes the artist too. So that's going to be a different experience. Yeah. So that's kind of, those are my off-the-cuff thoughts. Hopefully those are of some interest. And that will be the end of this session of the Rahdo Q&A. Thank you, folks, for watching and also for submitting your questions. Send me more to the email address questions@rahdo.com, and I'll get you covered in a future episode. And in the meantime, if you would like to hear some more, you're in luck. I have been doing the Rahdo Talks Through audio podcast for years now with my wife, Jen, and we have got hundreds of hours for you to enjoy. You can hit that big box that's on screen right now if you want to dive deep. Also, you can go on ahead and subscribe so you won't miss the next Rahdo Q&A. And thank you, folks, for watching, for listening. Have a very, very nice day. Talk to you later. So long. Bye-bye.